Imagine a world hidden just beyond our own, a world of magic, ancient traditions, and deeply held secrets. Now, imagine a door opening, not through a hidden alley or a secret platform, but through the unexpected arrival of someone just like you or me. How did these individuals, born outside the magical bubble, fundamentally alter the course of wizarding history? Let's dive deep into this fascinating question, perfect for our next book club discussion. The wizarding world, for centuries, existed in deliberate isolation from the non-magical or Muggle world. This separation was a cornerstone of their society, enshrined in the International Statute of Secrecy. Yet nature has its own plans. Magical ability isn't confined to pure-blood or even half-blood families. It can manifest spontaneously in children born to entirely non-magical parents. These children, the Muggle-borns, represent a natural, unpredictable bridge between two worlds that actively sought to remain apart. Their existence challenged the very foundation of wizarding isolation. How did the first Muggle-born witches and wizards even discover their abilities? Was it a letter from Hogwarts, like Hermione's, or a more chaotic, uncontrolled burst of magic in their youth? Consider the sheer disorientation. One moment you're a normal child, the next you're told you can perform feats that defy all known laws of physics, and that a hidden school awaits you. How were these early arrivals received by a community so steeped in tradition and wary of the outside world? Was there wonder, suspicion, or perhaps a mix of both? The established magical families, particularly the purebloods, had generations of history, customs, and even prejudices. A Muggle-born represented an unknown variable in their carefully ordered world. Their arrival wasn't just about adding new students to Hogwarts. It was about introducing entirely new perspectives, experiences, and ways of thinking into a relatively insular society. Think about the first time a Muggle-born child stepped onto Diagon Alley. Everything would have been alien, overwhelming, and utterly wondrous. This fresh perspective was something the wizarding world hadn't truly encountered from within its own ranks. The very existence of Muggle-borns raised uncomfortable questions for some pureblood families. If magic wasn't solely inherited through ancient lines, what did that say about their perceived superiority? This initial contact, this first wave of Muggle-born integration, set the stage for centuries of complex interactions, challenges, and ultimately profound change within the wizarding world. It forced the magical community to confront the reality that their world was not as self-contained as they might have wished. Muggle-born witches and wizards didn't just bring magic, they brought a lifetime of experiences from a completely different world. They understood technology, science, popular culture, and different social norms. Think of Arthur Weasley's fascination with electricity, compared to a Muggle-born who grew up using electricity daily. This simple difference highlights a fundamental gap in understanding and perspective. Their education before Hogwarts was entirely Muggle. They learned history, mathematics, literature, and science from a non-magical viewpoint. This knowledge base was foreign to most wizards. How did this different educational foundation influence their approach to magic? Did they perhaps think about problems or spells in ways purebloods wouldn't? Consider Hermione Granger, whose logical, research-driven approach often complemented or even surpassed the more traditional rote learning methods favored by some pureblood students. Their lived experiences also differed vastly. They navigated a world without magic, relying on different skills and developing different kinds of resilience. They understood concepts like public transport, telephones, television, and the internet, things most wizards were either ignorant of or actively avoided. This unique perspective wasn't always welcomed. To some, it was seen as contamination, a dilution of pure magical culture. To others, it was simply baffling. The challenges began early. Imagine trying to explain your background to classmates who had only ever known magic. The cultural divide was immense. Even simple things, like understanding wizarding money or social etiquette, would have been a steep learning curve for a Muggle-born. Yet this very difference was their strength. They weren't bound by the same traditions or prejudices. They could see the wizarding world with fresh eyes, questioning norms others took for granted. They weren't afraid to ask why or how does this work, in a way that perhaps pure-blood children immersed in the culture from birth might not have been. This ability to question and to bring outside knowledge was inherently disruptive to the established order. It forced the wizarding world to confront its own insularity. Life as a Muggle-born in the wizarding world was far from easy. Despite possessing magical ability, they often faced significant discrimination and prejudice. The term mudblood, a vile slur used to denote Muggle-borns, highlights the depth of this prejudice. It implies their magic is somehow impure or lesser. This discrimination wasn't just verbal. Muggle-borns were sometimes denied opportunities, looked down upon in social circles, and even targeted with violence, particularly during darker periods. Think of the pureblood families who refused to associate with Muggle-borns, or the Slytherin house's historical bias against them. This wasn't just snobbery, it was systemic. During Voldemort's rise, this prejudice escalated into outright persecution. Muggle-borns were hunted, imprisoned, and even murdered, their magic deemed stolen. The Ministry of Magic, under Voldemort's influence, established the Muggle-born Registration Commission, forcing them to prove their right to magic, a truly horrifying concept. Hermione Granger is the quintessential example. Despite facing prejudice, she became one of the most brilliant witches of her generation, mastering spells and subjects that many purebloods struggled with. Lily Evans, Harry Potter's mother, was another powerful and exceptionally talented witch, respected and admired by many, including her teachers and friends. Other examples include Colin Creevey, whose enthusiasm was infectious, and Justin Finch Fletchley, who, despite initial fear, stood with his fellow students against threats. These individuals and countless others didn't just survive, they thrived. They contributed significantly to their houses, to Hogwarts, and eventually to the wider wizarding community. They showed that courage, intelligence, loyalty, and skill were distributed regardless of one's background, challenging the core tenets of pureblood supremacy. Their unique perspectives have been a catalyst for innovation. Having grown up with Muggle technology, some Muggle-borns might have seen potential applications or parallels that pureblood wizards wouldn't. While the wizarding world largely shuns Muggle technology, the mindset behind it, problem-solving, efficiency, invention, could subtly influence magical advancements. Consider magical inventions or improvements. Could a Muggle-born's understanding of, say, mechanics or communication methods inspire new ways of using existing spells or creating new magical devices? Beyond invention, Muggle-borns have influenced magical laws and policies. As they gained positions of influence, they could advocate for greater equality and challenge discriminatory practices. The fight against pureblood supremacy and the push for a more inclusive wizarding world were significantly driven by the experiences and voices of Muggle-borns and their allies. Their presence also fostered greater understanding, albeit slowly, between the two worlds. Muggle-borns served as informal ambassadors, explaining aspects of the non-magical world to their wizarding peers. This cross-cultural exchange, however limited, broadened the horizons of the wizarding community, making them slightly less ignorant of the world outside their own. Attitudes toward Muggle-borns have evolved over time, particularly after the defeat of Voldemort, whose ideology of pureblood purity was thoroughly discredited. While prejudice may not have vanished entirely, it is no longer openly sanctioned or as widespread as it was during the height of his power. The post-Voldemort era saw a greater emphasis on unity and acceptance, recognizing the vital role Muggle-borns played in the fight against tyranny. Their arrival wasn't just a demographic shift, it was a fundamental challenge to the wizarding world's self-imposed isolation and its internal hierarchies. The contributions of Muggle-borns extend far beyond specific spells or inventions. They brought new ways of thinking, a different kind of courage, and a vital connection to the wider world. The fight for acceptance and equality, faced by Muggle-borns, mirrors struggles for civil rights and social justice in our own world, making their story particularly resonant. This exploration of Muggle-borns offers rich ground for discussion. Consider their journey, the obstacles they faced, and the indelible mark they left on the wizarding world.